What's up, everybody? Today's a sad day for our planet. Today, with the people in Ukraine and the aggressor of Russia, and the start of what looks to be an endless conflict between peoples. Normally, I'd be talking about some form of magic and some form of the application of it. And this is one of those conversations that I'm going to keep about 5 minutes or less today because we have things to consider. Is that the world is coming to war, and that the people and the spirits of the dead are going to shift between the living and the dead quite rapidly. It's always been bad with the Middle Eastern conflicts and with those things that have come up in the past. And as occultists, as people who seek the hidden knowledge, as people who seek to apply the hidden knowledge, we are the stewards of oral tradition. We are the stewards of history. So I implore you, shamans, mystics, witches, warlocks, wizards, magicians of any kind, keep your histories. Learn the stories of the people of Ukraine before they're lost. Learn the stories of the people of the tribes that get wiped out because of the aggressors, the millions of people that died 100 years ago, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that they did, so that those fights for territory, such as being engaged in right now, can come to an end and we can become a global people. We share this world with billions of people, and we all have to work on it. We all have to live on it. We all have to grow and eat and survive and have clean water and opportunity. The war that's come, the war that's coming, the destruction that's coming, it's not something that we should stand alone in. So delving into war magic, delving into battle magic, delving into, I'm not talking about like stuff from like the fiction series, the magicians or whatever, they're throwing energy balls at each other and small scale shit like that. I'm talking about full scale, calling on the armies of the dead, calling upon the warriors that have fallen in the past. I'm talking about causing misfortune to the aggressive enemies. I'm talking about wishing upon death and destruction upon your enemies. That's almost just as sad as praying for victory. But when bullets start flying, there will be victory for one side or the other. Whoever has the most guns, whoever has the spirit of the people on their side. And what is the spirit of the people? What is the spirit of this planet, if not as a collective form of unity? If we remain divided, I fear for the worst. And I don't like to be afraid. I don't like to think about what happens when somebody's hometown gets destroyed because of some war, some politician thousands of miles away decides to leave because that's just the thing they want to do. That's corruption. On a scale with the capacities of modern technology, with the buildup of war and the warfare machines. So as we call forth the spirits of the dead, as we consider the spirits of the dying, and we call forth their rage and their wrath against these kinds of behaviors and these kinds of situations, what is our solution? That's the question. For 2 years, I've spent my time building infrastructure so that way we could create a network of people that's independent of politicians. That way we can work with and create collaborations between peoples across borders, outside of culture, outside of religion, outside of popular rhetoric. Millions of people, in some small way, are teaching their thing, their niche, their collaboration. And it is through this that we must endure. so that even if those voices are silenced because of war, the things that they had taught, the things that they had talked about, the things that they had produced have a record, so that now it exists within the digital archive of humanity, so that those people whose lives are lost, whose lives are upended and uprooted, so that those farmers who are murdered, so that those business owners who are shot down, so that those children and women and the infirmed and the elderly who saw wonderful times of peace and they're ravaged by war right now, as that becomes the new reality, as that becomes part of the overlay between what is and what could be, we have a choice to make as a species to embrace the lessons of the past, to learn from them and make sure that they're never repeated. We are stewards of history, people that understand the transmigration of souls, people that deal with the transmigration, people that deal with exorcism and spirits and the dead and necromancy and all of the different things and all of the different horrors that are coming to be wrought. So today is not about us. Today is about the stories of those who we have lost and we are losing and we will lose as a result of this petty bullshit Putin is pulling. Countries grow, they shrink, they ebb and they tide in the flow of history. The world is a fucked up place. Too long has the world been divided, and it needs a collective unity. It needs all politicians working together in one course to prevent something like this from happening. To create one world where we all collaboratively determine the needs of our people so that the borders and the disputes and the nations, it's not just one nation, it's all nations. And as aggressors like Russia, and if China decides to go into Taiwan, if they try to join and create this wave of destruction in the same way that the Middle East has become its own wave of destruction, half the world divided by war, half the world trying to prevent the destruction of a way of life. Both sides lose. The children that are born will lose. The people that have to survive those conditions lose. The people that are left lose. Dividing nations, dividing territory, dividing land instead of figuring out a way to create collaborative overlays so that you don't have to have these kinds of conflicts is the failure of the institutions that our forebears have created. We have to be a voice, calm, strong, resolute. We are the preservers of history, hidden histories, hidden ways, knowledge that should be commonplace to help people understand their connection and their communion between this world and the spirit world and the other world are all polluted by dogma and by rhetoric and by bullshit that has allowed this world to descend yet again into a world of chaos and destruction. So when you work with black magic, when you work with destructive forces, when you work with the chaotic realms, the dark gods, and the fallen world, what demons do we want to conjure? What destruction do we want to raise upon the people of Russia? The soldiers following orders, the families that they're trying to protect from a communist regime, the people that are going to be suffering because their economies are going to collapse around them, the businesses that will fail, the people's dreams that don't get to be dreamed because they've been murdered or shut down because of the sanctions or because of the war. Who do we curse? What demons do we summon? What darkness do we unleash? Or what light do we provide? What change do we develop? These are the questions that I have for you. These are the questions that I cannot myself alone answer. But I know this. We are responsible for the stories of this world. We are responsible for the legends and the myths of these people. Every people. As a witch, as an occultist, as a sorcerer, as a wizard, as a magician, as someone who's just alive on this planet, you have stories, you have histories, you have experiences that need to be preserved. And the preservation of culture, the development of culture, the development of a single world culture. So if all the countries of NATO became one country, if all the people of the world united together through conflict, as it was in the past, but instead of the divisive lines and barriers of nations and states and substates and all of these things, that becomes bureaucracy. That becomes, how do you organize the day-to-day? How do you get the logistics of the day-to-day so that the people don't starve, so that the people have the food and the energy and the water and the medicines and the doctors and the experience to be able to live at a higher level of standards, so that there is an entire infrastructure where people can dedicate it to niche specialties so that people have the opportunities to survive. These are the questions that I have for you. What is your role to play in the years to come? What is your role to play now? We can only do so much alone, only together. Do you and your spirits, do you and the ways of the world get to work? So protecting the spirits of those that are going to die. That's not enough. Protecting the people that have already died so that they can transmigrate into a world of peace. What world of peace can we build with the world and the state that it's in? An entire global shift has to occur. The ideas between capitalism and communism, between the East and the West, between Eastern Europe and Western Europe, between China and India and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Iran and Egypt and all the countries in Africa. The US. It's too broken. The way that the structures are working now, there needs to be more thought put into this. There needs to be a collaboration. There needs to be a creation, so that way the world can recreate itself as a collective, not as a singular. National borders no longer serve when we have a global unified world through the internet. National borders no longer work when we have industry and resource. This is going to be a disaster for the generations to come. So we have to prepare. So what does your preparations look like? Mars, the god of war. Aries, the constellation of war. The devils in hell. The angels of heaven. All of these things united together. Every culture is mythos of demons and monsters and all of these kinds of personifications of evil that people will begin to inhabit and embody and become. This is the world that we get to look forward to, thanks to the divisive rhetoric of the Christians, the Catholics, the Muslim, the Jew. The people that have been cast out and isolated, and the politicians that would have land grabs and butcher, and the cruelty of people. We're at the threshold of history, my friends. But which history? A world that'll be united in a technological revolution that will make this petty conflict the last one? Or is just this the first of a World War III, 4, 5, and 6? Will this just continually be the fate of this planet, or will we figure out a way to come together and accept a change beyond just national borders, beyond just simple petty racism, beyond a reason to hate people and the proliferation of hate and vengeance and death I feel bad for the children of Russia. I feel bad for the business owners that their livelihoods are about to be upended forever. I feel bad for the dreams of the people that'll never get to be dreamed. But what are we going to do about it? So I was only going to do 5 minutes. This turned into 10 or 15. Sorry. But war is here. Conflict is here. What do we do for the souls of the dead who simply followed orders? What do we do for the ones that got murdered by the ones that were simply following order? That's the question. And it's one with no good answer, because then we have to elevate both of them. We have to purify the dead in both cases. How do we purify the dead? How do we retell those stories? Is it the story of the army they served in, or is it the story of the children of the war that went off to go and destroy because that was their government's orders? Because if they didn't, they'd be shot. If they didn't, they'd be murdered. So they were preserving their lives. They were preserving the lives of their families, trying to create stability, trying to create these layers of the story where nobody is right, nobody is wrong. It's the situation. The people that architect that situation that are wrong. It's the people that order those things with the threat of violence and fear and the destruction of the world as it is. We have to stand up in a way that nobody else has seen in any generation previous to our own. We have to be the ones to bring people to the table that would never otherwise be at that table because of the old traditions and the old orders and the old prejudices and the old hates. It's time that those are the things that are put to death. So that way we can come together for peace. So that land and territory, it doesn't matter. It's just land and it's just territory and we all live on it. If you want to live in a different area, great, live in that different area. But don't murder. Don't cheat, don't steal, don't do this. It's not worth it. And the world that is going to come out as a result of it, we must be better for it. So for those of you that follow this channel, I appreciate you being here. For those of you that are new to this channel, it's about magic. It's about the occult. It's about the oral traditions and the living history. And war is an unfortunate part of that living history. We are living history. And so how we choose to rise and stand up so that those who are left can write it down, so that those oral traditions, those stories of the mystical, those stories of the other world that people of the Ukraine got to experience, that they will experience no longer as they transition from this world into the next. Those stories and those histories and those traditions that are lost, the skills and the trades and the crafts that are lost because of the modern era. All of this is a violation. And it's a violation by the people that are issuing the orders and carrying them out. This is why governments are bad. This is why governments are corrupt, is because on both sides this will occur. People can't think for themselves. People don't think for themselves. And if they do think for themselves, they collaborate in a way that doesn't benefit the all. It only benefits the few. Such is the nature of people. So hopefully this video doesn't get me banned off of YouTube, but we have to stand together as a people. One world people. No nationalistic borders. We have to stand with the people of Ukraine so that they fight off the invading enemies, and the people of the NATO alliance. We have to help the children of Russia that are going to suffer. The people that are innocent of what Putin is doing. The people that had nothing to do with war are still going to suffer. The same way that the people of Ukraine are going to suffer, and they had nothing to do with war. They're not in the military. They're civilians. Civilians have no place in military action, but military action is the mechanism by which borders are decided, by whose laws get to be written into history. It's up to us to preserve those histories without borders. It's up to us to figure out a way to make sure that those spirits are honored, that the ancestors are honored, and that those traditions are not lost to history like so many cultures have been. So many different nuances between the magic and the spiritual. So many different things have been ruined because of evil ambitions. So new ambitions need to take their place. New words, new rhetoric, new vocabularies. Peace. Will peace be possible? That's my question, my friends. Stay safe. Don't be evil. Try to figure out a way around this situation. Try to figure out a way where you can produce for those around you a result that will allow endurance. What skills do you possess that, if you passed them along, would preserve a way of life? Help develop a new way of life? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves. So with that, my friends, stay safe and please don't be evil. There's enough of that in the world. Thoughts and prayers aren't going to be enough for this one, folks. We have to have action. We have to figure out how it is we can act in a way that will unite the world instead of divide it. Even as the bullets start flying, the bombs start dropping, and the tanks start rolling, we are fucked. Let's unfuck this. It's up to us, not the politicians, not the military. It's up to us, individual people. It's our role to help culture. Our world is in chaos because the few think they can do what they want instead of what they should be doing. Stay safe. And I'll see you tomorrow for the spell of the day. Bye for now, y'all.